Artificial intelligence is becoming a bigger factor in the commercial construction with new solutions coming on the market regularly. Joining us today is Sandeep Ahuja, CEO of cove.tool, an Atlanta-based startup that uses machine learning to assist AEC firms optimize design, cost, and sustainability, as well as prioritize energy efficiency protocols. Welcome to the weekly, Sandeep.
Thanks.
Um,
Glad to
let's.
be here.
Oh, our pleasure. Can we start our conversation by having you describe how cove.tool works and what makes it different from some of the other analytical software that's out there right now?
Yeah, for sure. So, on a super high level, CoveTool really is an automated building performance design app. And it does everything from energy, daylight, carbon, views, COVID, literally everything that we would need to do and design a good building. And what makes it especially helpful is that it runs these cost optimizations for our performance objectives. So for example, if our building has a performance criteria, let's say code minimum, just we just need to meet regulation, Cove Tool would look through thousands of material assemblies and iterations to figure out the lowest cost way to get there. And it will tell us that use an expensive glass or don't use an expensive wall because it's just not worth it, or upgrade this, but don't bother wasting your money on that. And the key item that makes it different is that it's completely automated. You don't need to be an expert like I used to be. I used to be a sustainability consultant for years. Every single architect, every single engineer, every single contractor can run the models with very few key metrics like building size and location and be on their way to basically have an optimal design, not just for energy, not just for performance, but for cost.
Hmm. What would you say would be the potential benefits for applying machine learning to design specifically?
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, for one, I think machine learning has become a good bit of buzzword. In fact, I remember being in a conference not too long ago where I was asked a question by a group of architects that, is it going to automate our job? Well, definitely not. Um, at least, that's not what would be a good use of it at all, because, there's so much else going in there. But what it does help us is to learn from how we work so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. For example, prior to Cove Tool, when I ran a successful consulting practice, we had a very strong understanding of key building performance and regulation parameters for the locations that we worked in. But every time we brought in a new team member or had to do a project in another location, we had to create that knowledge and we had to pass that knowledge on from one person to the next. And with machine learning, along with automation, not only are we automatically passing that knowledge on a global scale, but we're also able to improve the quality of the information with thousands of practitioners adding some real scale to how we make our practice better.
It's interesting. Do you have any recent case studies or examples where your software is at work, and what were some of the results?
Oh wow, that's a hard one to pick
Okay.
because with thousands of offices, homes, labs, hospitals, classrooms, gosh, literally everything that's being designed on the platform, I can hardly keep up with all the things our users are doing. One of the case studies that we did recently publish, and because we published it and I was involved with the marketing team, that I came across was a renovation project with the EYP team, and it was a dorm renovation project. And I know that renovation's typically not considered sexy as new construction, but I
That
want
might change.
exactly right. But I wanted to talk about it anyway because it does have more constraints, and on what the team can actually do. Of course, we can't change the massing; it's kind of all set in stone, pun intended.
Yeah.
But the team can change other things like glass, HVAC, insulation, all that good stuff. So basically, the EYP team, along with their entire engineering team, pre-construction team, pulled together a few different types of glass, few different types of mechanical systems, lighting packages, so on and so forth, that it became a grand total of 725 possible combinations,
Mm.
each with a different performance and a different cost value. And the team used Cove Tool and the integrated features to collaborate, but also figure out exactly where they needed to spend every dollar to get the biggest bang. And they figured out the mechanical system, they figured out the wall insulation, and they knew that they were making the best choice because they'd looked at everything.
That's great. What's next for your product, your company? Oh, if we were going to have this conversation a year from now, what can we look forward to?
So many things. Gosh, you're talking to a startup. We have a biweekly launch cycle, and we're constantly we're constantly adding more and more things to better serve our users and industry, to fight climate change, which is really what drives us. I think the coolest thing that's coming, it's a major launch in March, where we're solving the age-old problem of BIM to BEM, just
Oh,
because
yeah,
that's never been figured out yet, but we're very, very close. We're also figuring out code compliance energy simulation, just because that's all very, very manual, time consuming. And we're launching the ability to draw and edit dirty building geometry to clean IFC models, which would literally save people hundreds of hours of manual work. So I'm super excited about that.
that's great. I'd like to go back to your previous role as a sustainability director. Your company recently put out a report on AEC Trends. And one of the more interesting trends was that nearly half of the thousand architects that you polled said that they're getting sustainability mentioned at least half of the time in the RFPs they're receiving. And I'm wondering if you could share with us a couple of other key findings from that report that might entice our readers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a good one, right? Because that tells us where the industry is going, kind of where the market is headed. Um,
Surprisingly, honestly, I mean, these are developers we're talking about here.
It's yeah, I mean it's changing, right? Because the regulations need it to change. The regulations are so stringent. Like for example, I'm based in Atlanta. We literally just went from the 2007 code to the 2013 energy code, and that's 40% more efficient. So if we're not talking about sustainability in the RFQ, I mean we're going to be caught unprepared, and our budget will be definitely exceeding if we weren't prepared for it early on. So um, makes sense from kind of that holistic design sense. But I thought there were quite a few cool observations. One that I thought was somewhat expected was that we did like a pre-COVID and a post-COVID, like how have people's types of buildings changed in terms of their design phase, and like we expected, of course, residential was on the high, multifamily or single family. One that I wasn't entirely sure, but noticed it in the trend, was that higher ed was going up too. And that makes sense, I guess, because spoke to
Yeah.
a few universities. Students are away, so they're excited to get lot of their construction in. Um, and one that I found also interesting was that there's certain building types like hospitals or offices or education that have made significant leap in the last few years to bring down the base energy use over the years. They have really made that leap. They've started bringing it down holistically on average. However, buildings like retail or hospitality, they still have a little bit more work to do. Like they're still not that much better than they were 10 years ago. And I think that kind of also tells us what we need to focus on energy on. Well, also, I guess, pun intended, as we try to make those energy efficient as well.
Mm. Well, Sandeep, thanks for sharing a couple of minutes with us. I wish you good luck with your future endeavors and with your company.
I appreciate it. It's been
Yeah.
a pleasure talking to you.
And thanks to our audience for watching. This is John Caulfield from Building Design and Construction.